Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Estrella Virtual Visit Series. I'm Allison Campbell with Estrella Consulting, and I'm excited to welcome Noelle Halikman from the College of New Jersey joining us today. So thank you, Noelle, for joining us. We're excited to learn a little bit more about your institution. If you don't mind just taking a few moments and just introducing yourself and telling us how long you've been with TCNJ.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Noelle Halikman. Right now, I'm working as an admissions counselor, and I do work with first year students, but I also work with our transfer cohort. So, I've been in admissions for just a little over a year, but I am a TCNJ alum, and I did graduate in 2024. So, I've been here for a collective of about 5 years now, 5.5. But definitely an amazing institution, and can't wait to tell you about it.
That's great. So I love that we're going to get not only the admission perspective, but you are not far removed from being a student. So you can definitely talk a little bit about student life and what it is to be, in the tri-state area and things like that. So this will be
Definitely.
great.
Yeah.
So let's tell us a little bit about the College of New Jersey. Tell us about your enrollment, where you're located, any points of pride or distinctive things that you think potential students would want to know.
Yeah, so we are located in New Jersey, obviously, it's in the name,
Hmm.
but we're in Ewing, New Jersey to be specific. So it's only about 10 to 15 minutes away from Princeton, New Jersey. So we're in a really nice location that's pretty much centered within the state. But if you're looking at a map of the nation, we're pretty centrally located between New York City and Pennsylvania as well. So when it comes down for internships or job opportunities, truthfully, the options are endless for some of our students because we're right next to a train station. So it is
Okay.
so nice for them to be able to pop up or pop down whenever needed, or complete a remote really internship as well, which is great. But on campus, we have about 7,000 students, so we're sitting at
Okay.
that
It's a nice size.
medium-sized, yeah, super nice. Usually a class size never really hits above a 23 to 25 student range. Typically, it sits with a 13 to 1 student to professor ratio. So when I was a student, at least, I never had a class above 30, which was awesome. And then going into senior year, your classes become even smaller, 5, 6, 7 students. So you're really getting that hands-on experience and that individual attention.
That's awesome. And of the 7,000 students, would you consider yourself a residential campus? Do you have a lot of commuters? Kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so on our campus, we do have a multitude of residence halls. Most students do tend to live on campus because our first year residence hall requirement was implemented a couple years ago.
Okay.
So most students choose to live on campus their first year unless they have an accommodation or they prefer to commute if they live closer. But typically, students stay on campus till about junior year, if not senior. We have a couple of apartment complexes nearby that students like to live in, and there's a neighborhood right next to TCNJ that students will utilize. But I would say that we have a very high student population that kind of sticks around and hangs out on campus.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love hearing that at least there's options that if you do want to stay junior and senior year, that's afforded to you. Sometimes when I do these virtual visits, they'll say like, we're guaranteed for 1 year, but we don't have a lot of housing beyond that. So best of luck. And it sounds like you're in more of like a metropolitan area versus like a big city center. So like when I have colleges that are in New York or Boston or Philly or LA or something like that, that's so hard because it's insane to live there, off campus
Yeah,
and, have that
definitely.
type of housing or like even the proximity. So it sounds like students are able to stay if they want, they prefer to stay, if they're staying willingly until their junior, potentially senior year, which is
Yeah.
really good to hear. When you said between New York and PA, are you between like equidistant between New York and Philly or a different part of Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so we're about an hour from Philadelphia by train. Driving, it takes about 45 minutes. And then from New York City, it's about an hour and a half on a train. So very
Okay.
equidistant between the two.
Okay, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about the type of student that attends TCNJ. Like, as you're recruiting, what are you kind of seeing as far as like the type of student that would thrive?
Sure. So typically we look for students that are widely involved in community service, maybe have a job on the weekends, pieces like that. But we also do really look for academically strong students. So we're looking for about a 3.4 GPA or higher, but we can be flexible. Typically for some of our other more intensive programs, such as nursing or engineering, that's when we're going to see a little bit more of an increase in GPA and academic rigor. But as long
Okay.
as we can see that you've achieved academic progression. So maybe let's say first year of high school wasn't so hot, but you've really done well and picked it up your sophomore, junior, and senior year, that's going to shine a little bit further. So we will definitely take that into consideration. And then, as I had mentioned before, those extracurriculars kind of boost it just another little length that it needs to be because a lot of students on TCNJ's campus are highly, highly involved.
Okay. Do you require test scores for admission?
So only for our nursing program, it is required. We look for about a 1200 SAT, and usually the ACT is pretty comparable to that. But I would say that if you're applying into like a engineering major or a science heavy major, those scores are highly encouraged. They're not
Okay.
required, but it will definitely boost an application and could potentially award scholarship going forward.
Okay. I'm just taking notes as you talk about this. So
Sure.
nursing requires the submission of a test score. Engineering and STEM-based ones are encouraged.
Yes, encouraged,
Um,
not required.
and if you have a strong test score, would that be encouraged to submit because it would allow you greater opportunities for merit scholarship, or is everybody considered for the same merit scholarship whether or not you submit test scores?
Yeah, so two pieces with that. The first piece is if you have a good test score and you're confident in it, regardless if it's an ACT or an SAT, I highly encourage you submit it. I think it can really help students. It can help us get a better idea of who you are as an applicant. So my answer is yes. The
Okay.
good thing about being test optional is that if it is not that great of a score and you submit it, it doesn't necessarily impact your decision.
Okay.
We'll definitely take a peek at it, and once we see it, it's hard to unsee it, but it won't deny anything going forward that heavily. And
Okay.
then the piece about merit scholarship. So we automatically scan every application for merit scholarship. So
Okay.
typically we award within the top 30% of the graduating class that has applied to TCNJ. So we can kind of look through historical data, we can look through class rank if it's provided, all the pieces to make that educated decision. But if you do have a 1350 SAT or higher, that can potentially award in scholarship.
Okay. So top 30% of class are historically awarded merit aid, but the 1350 is kind of like a trigger for a top scholarship opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. And aside from the automatic scholarship, when a student is applying, is there opportunities for extra, like we call them hidden scholarships, like via your website or particular programs that are through TCNJ, not like something at their high school or whatnot?
Yeah, so we do encourage definitely local scholarships to be applied for through the high school, but through TCNJ, we do have a scholarship page, and usually it's updated per year that gives a good kind of temperature of what's going on in the scholarship world. So I would definitely recommend just looking up TCNJ scholarship, and it should be the first thing that pops up. And then also with that, we do, really recommend students filling out that FAFSA because it immediately A allows you to receive the scholarship, and then B, it will open you up to other funding that could potentially be missed if it's not filled out.
Okay, that sounds good. That's good to know. So let's talk a little bit about some of your majors and programs. So what are you well known for, would you say?
Yeah, so TCNJ typically and originally was known as a solely a teaching college. It was only for teachers way back when we were originated in 1855, which has pretty much built a very strong foundation to have a really strong education program. So
Okay.
you'll definitely see a high number of students interested in elementary education, secondary ed, school counseling, pieces like that. But aside from that, we do have a very strong nursing program with a 100% pass rate on our NCLEX board exam for the past couple of years. So can't
Okay.
really get much better than that.
Yeah.
And in general, our business school is incredibly strong with a very strong alumni network, which
Okay.
just leads to a slew of internships and further job opportunities. And then, of course, engineering is going to be strong. But, what's interesting about TCNJ is that you really could list out any major and there's something beneficial in every single one of them. Um, we are a very holistic school. We don't stand out for one piece and one piece only. Every major makes up what TCNJ is, and that's just a widely academic rigorous group.
Okay, that's awesome. And I'm sure like in most of these, like you mentioned, education, business, nursing, that you are able to leverage your location. You're not in like a completely rural area, you're close enough to bigger cities, especially for business. I'm sure you could definitely leverage like a New York City or a PA connection or one of your one of the people that are your alumni in your alumni network, but also I'm sure with just like having healthcare around you, getting students
Yes.
into placements, rotations, things like that would be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. You're spot on with that. And we partner with multiple different hospitals nearby, some of which are in Philly, some are 10 minutes down the road. So it does really open that opportunity for those students to just not have to travel super far or not have to find those options. They're pretty much
Mhm.
provided straight through TCNJ.
That's awesome. Okay. Are you a public or private institution?
We are a public school.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about values. So it sounds
Yeah,
like we were chatting a little bit before we got started, and you said like the majority of your kids are from the tri-state area, so New York, New Jersey, PA, but you do have a few students that will come from outside of those areas. But what's the draw? Like, why do you feel like students are like, yeah, this is a great place for me if I'm on that East Coast or kind of in that area? Talk to us a little
absolutely.
about the value.
Yeah, I think it really just emotes what New Jersey can be in the positive way. We recently removed the campaign, but we had a campaign called the High campaign. And we use that because New Jersey is notoriously unfriendly, and we are not. So we used the High campaign. So we've, pretty much just pushed through this positive energy that TCNJ shows. So anybody around TCNJ, regardless if they're from a city or they're from a more rural standpoint or suburban area, there's an area for them to shine and feel included. And I
Yeah.
think that definitely pulls. I actually can speak on behalf of being an out-of-state student. I'm from Pennsylvania. And
Okay.
I am not super far from the campus, about a half an hour, and it's right across the bridge. And just coming across felt very homey and cozy, which really shows. And as you can see behind me, this is the
Hmm.
campus, and it gives a very traditional college feel with that colonial Georgian style buildings. But it's also, very green. There's lots of trees and grass, and we
Hmm.
have a lake nearby, so it feels comfortable.
Yeah, and I feel like again, just like you said, working off assumptions that other people have about like not being friendly. Like I don't think of New Jersey as being green. And like when your screen popped up, I'm like, oh wow, that's really pretty. That looks really
Yes.
nice.
Yeah, and we're
So
only about 45 minutes away from the nearest beach. So if students really want to, they can head down to the beach for the weekend or pop over just to kind of feel the sand and understand what, the ocean can be so therapeutic during finals week, things like that.
yeah,
It's a really, like that central location is huge. I mean, it's
yeah.
just so many little areas nearby that can make a student feel really welcomed.
No matter what you're looking for, it sounds like there's accessibility to the big city, to something more rural, to the beach, I mean, really, like when you're saying about Pennsylvania, I'm sure like if you go an hour into Pennsylvania, you'll be in like
Yes.
Amish country, farm
Yes.
country. So you can have a little bit of everything there. That's great.
Definitely.
So you said, okay, so in-state school, is there any reciprocity for like your New York and PA students to have like an in-state tuition rate and maybe that be something like a driver, or is
Yeah.
it in-state
So
students only and then PA in New York, you got to pay the out-of-state rate?
So we do have a pretty, I would say a pretty harsh, like, in-state, out-of-state, what would the word be? I guess just like signification. We allow students definitely to work and get that scholarship down to make sure that they can get as close to the in-state tuition as possible. But I will say that we have recently started this Lions Legacy Award. So if students are out of state and they've had a parent graduate from TCNJ, they can get in-state tuition because their parents are an alum. So definitely
Cool.
some things to think about. If you have any students that have a TCNJ alum in their family, it is really great to look into.
That's really good to know. That's a
Yeah.
very cool value. And I actually have not had anybody like I've done maybe 45 of these virtual visits and nobody has ever had that as like a scholarship marketing tactic. So that's really
Yeah.
unique. I like that.
Thank you.
For you mentioned nursing and engineering, and another question I had is, are your programs direct admit? So when a student is applying, they have to know exactly what it is that they're going to, or is like a pre-health track, or is it pretty much like you don't have to declare until your sophomore year type situation?
Yeah, so they are direct admit, especially our nursing program, direct admit. But the couple things with that question is, we do offer change of major. The only major that is a no-go is to transfer in or switch into the nursing program. So that's a pretty much day one, and that's the only option. Other
Okay.
than that, we do offer, a pre-med track, pre-law track options for students that want to add that to a biology or a history or political science major. Those are really great options to think about. But overall, yes, we are direct admit.
Okay. And those are for all majors?
Hmm.
Okay. Good to know. So, students, if you're watching this and you like TCNJ, start thinking about ways that you can do some sort of internship, summer program, shadowing, like just to make sure that this like the intended career path that you have in mind, because you'll have to admit into that major. And it sounds like there is a little bit of flexibility in every major. If you get into business or one of the sciences or something and you don't love it, you could transfer out of that major, except for
Hmm.
nursing or to go into
Yes.
nursing. So. Okay, cool. Um, a couple other pieces on academics is, do you have an honors college?
So we have an honors program. So once
Okay.
students attend TCNJ for their first semester or first year, they're able to apply into the honors program. And we do this so that they can feel out the academic load, what that academic rigor looks like at a collegiate level. And then going forward, we're able to allow them to take on an honors level course load. Usually this is discussed with your advisor. It's less on the admissions office, which is kind of nice.
Hmm.
But it definitely gives them an opportunity to feel it out and then decide if they want to push themselves a little bit further.
And is there any type of gain to do to pursue the honors program? Do you get specific housing? Do you get priority scheduling? Do you get a parking pass? Do you get is there a monetary gain? Like, do you get a scholarship or a stipend?
Yeah, sure. So typically it is more of an academic gain. There is a stamp on your diploma. It definitely gets added to your transcript. You're taking honors courses, so they're specific to the honors program. So it can be a little bit more simple to get into courses just because it is that specific cohort. It's almost like a major inside a major, if you think about it like
Okay.
that. Um, I did take an honors course when I was here as a student, but I was not in the honors program. It was definitely very challenging, but it definitely gives you that little bit of academic prestige, I would say. But
Okay.
there is a nice mix sometimes in your honors classes, how I just shared, you'll have a student that's not in the honors program. So you're still interacting with other students on campus. It's not very exclusive at all.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like like a culture of like-mindedness to have like other
Totally.
peers that want to push themselves and maybe ask some like more existential introspective questions and have a little bit of like a smaller school feel within a mid-sized school. But I love your
Totally.
size. We always
Yeah.
joke that it's like the Goldilocks size.
Yes.
That 7,000 is really really nice because it's big enough that you're not going to know everybody ever. You'll see some familiar faces, you can see who you want to see, but those class sizes can definitely be whittled down as you kind of move through your degree progression. So very,
Absolutely.
very cool. What's a major that you feel is flying under the radar? Like, what's something you're like, we have this and it's really cool or really niche to us?
Oh, I would say environmental studies is a big one that has
Okay.
become really popular within the last couple of years. Many students have shown some strong interest in that. But I will say as well, a lot of our arts and communication majors are very underrated, super cool. I would definitely encourage, students to take a look at the list of our arts and communications majors, just because it gives a little bit more of a creative aspect to the campus, and those can all be picked up as a minor as well. So if you're in the
Okay.
business school or you're in humanities and social science and want to add a graphic design minor, you can. There's pieces to really customize your experience at TCNJ. Um, but I would say one of the biggest pieces is that we focus a lot on academic strength. So going forward, if you really are interested in one major, we will not deter you from picking up a double major or double
Okay.
minor or things like that.
Okay. So there is that addition, like that opportunity to expand your wings. I think too, like when you're in high school, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So when you go into something, you're like, I want to be a nurse or I want to go into business. And then you take a political science class for the first time, or you take a European history or an art therapy course. You're like, oh wow,
Hmm.
like because you just never had that opportunity. And whether
Totally.
it's through like a core curriculum or an elective or something, like students develop these interests that they never knew existed or they had, and the opportunity to do like four more classes and have a minor is just a really cool way to diversify,
Yeah.
their knowledge base, their applicate, their diploma. It might stand out maybe on a resume when you go to apply. So I love that.
Yes,
Sounds like it's pretty common that students are picking up double majors, double minors,
it
things
is.
like
And
that.
we also, just to plug a piece, we have this process called the liberal learning program, and that we have our college core classes. So when students come in, the typical verbiage would be a general education class or a gen ed. But we offer college core. So what that essentially means is the first couple of semesters, you're taking courses that are general and will hit those immediate credits, but they're touching in different areas. Maybe a foreign language, maybe
Hmm.
it's a women and gender studies course or a art requirement, a race and gender requirement, all these different pieces that will do exactly what you were just saying, kind of lift that excitement up a little bit so that if a
Hmm.
student takes one of these classes, they have enough movement in their schedule early enough that they can choose to swap into a major or minor that may interest them that they weren't aware of.
That's awesome. All right, I love that. We talked a little bit about honors, and I want to know, maybe on the opposite end, if you have students that are coming in with, I mean, IEPs, 504s, and granted, we know that we can't like technically take those from high school into college, but like, do you have outside of just like your traditional like disability services, do you have any type of layers of support or even like fee-based services for students that may have learning disabilities or neurodiversity?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an accessibility resource center on campus. They go by ARC, so the acronym. They
Hmm.
are a really well-run service on campus. So it is free for all students to utilize that need extra time on tests. They need a little excessive support within the classroom, whatever that looks like. And that is a free service. So they can utilize that pretty much through their entire 4 years at TCNJ. If
Okay.
they wish to receive more, any for like further type of help or any support going forward, whether that's socially, housing based, dining, academically, they can join the Lions Plus program, which is a fee-based program, but it does offer a lot of extra resources that are needed on campus for students. So that's all run through the Accessibility Resource Center. Aside
Okay.
from that, we do have a tutoring center on campus for students that don't want to give any more attention to an IEP or a 504, but still really do need that academic support. That is again a free service on campus, so you can utilize the tutoring center up to 3 times a week, and it
Okay.
is a paid
And
on
that's free.
campus job. Yes, it is
Three
free.
free tutoring sessions a week.
Yep.
Okay.
And we also do have other options for students that have any form of accommodation on campus, such as a nutritionist, a dietitian. We have our housing department that accommodates for students that need special type of housing, any form of accommodation in that realm. So we're pretty much covered in every area.
That's great. That was my next question was going to be about like housing, living, learning communities. Like, do you have anything specific for like LGBTQ plus, like gender neutral housing, any of that type of stuff? Like, how do you support? I guess we'll move into that. How do you support diversity on your campus?
Sure. So we do have a most of our students live in a co-ed flooring type of system, but we do have gender neutral housing when requested on campus. We do have some floors that are not co-ed for comfortability. We also have Umoja housing, which has students that want to room with someone of the same ethnicity or maybe potentially different to really increase that inclusive atmosphere on campus. So different types of pieces that are really just making sure students are comfortable. And then
Okay.
if they want to live individually, there's also ways to go about that through the Accessibility Resource Center.
Okay. That sounds good. Um, you said Emoja housing? How do you spell
Yes,
that?
U Umoja.
All right. I'm glad you spelled that for me because that was not what I had typed out for myself.
All
But I
good.
appreciate you explaining that. But I love
Sure.
that you do have a fee-based service. We've actually done a lot of research on that at Estrella. We have a few in Ohio that are really popular. One is a state school, one is a small private liberal arts school. We have one in Pennsylvania that is pretty popular. That's deals more like caters more to students on the autism spectrum. But
Mm,
um, I think just identifying that and like giving students that option because some students come into it and they are like, I need this support. I will meet with a tutor. I will meet with a coach. I will do what you need me to do. Like, and they still like have the autonomy to be a college
right.
student, but just need like that extra structure in place with like a diagnosis or
Totally.
ADHD, autism, that's fine. But I feel like sometimes if there isn't something that is set up in place and they're just kind of like left to their own devices, it might be a recipe for failure. So I love having
Absolutely.
schools on our list that do have dedicated student support, even if it is like fee-based, because again, I think then you get what you pay for. And if
Totally.
it's free, sometimes not that the free ones are not, we've got some
Sure.
great free resources out there at schools,
Yeah.
but that fee-based program usually has just like such additional layers of support for our students that they are able to succeed. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then do you have a lot of students that are coming from out of the country
So we
or do you,
do have a pretty large international population on campus. We have a full international admissions department, so we do work with them quite often. So it's definitely not something to be deterred away from. We work very closely with them and are very well prepared.
okay, that's awesome. I'm sure you and I know you said you don't necessarily work with international students and usually like your secondaries transfers, but I'm sure your counterparts in the international department are just like
Oh
spinning
yeah.
their heads right now. It's quite
Oh
the
yeah.
time for those people. I feel like I've talked to a few VPs on some of these interviews, and they're just like, this international situation is disaster. So really feel for those professionals that are dealing with that and just are such enormous advocates for students that are,
Absolutely.
trying to get to the States to, finish their college or to start and finish their college degrees
Sure.
and working with the
Yeah.
visas and the constant changes. So shout out to you guys. You guys are awesome.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so this is hopefully a softball, considering that you are a recent grad, you're working there, um, and we're just about out of time. So I would love to know during your time as a student or as an employee now, who has been the most exciting guest, speaker, concert that you've had on campus? That's the first part. And then the second part is who is your most interesting alumnus?
Oh, that's a good one.
Mhm.
So I think ooh, multiple, but I'll pick a few. So for the concerts on campus, we have a really cool department and organization. It's student led that brings all these different people to campus. So whether it be singers and songwriters or comedians, the coolest one was probably Colin Jost from SNL.
Like him.
Dating Scarlett Johansson, pretty awesome.
Hmm.
That was really great. And then we had Kesha, but that was before she was super famous. But definitely some really good people, and usually they're either free or only about $5. So very reasonable for students to come and see that on campus.
That's cool.
And then our most notable alum, if anybody is a sports fan, Tom McCarthy is a really well-known sports announcer across America. He works with football, he works with Fox, ESPN, CBS, all the pieces, but he's mainly with the Philadelphia Phillies. So he is always on TV, very noticeable voice, and
Hmm.
his entire family has gone to TCNJ, including his
Uh,
wife and 4 kids. So it has been a really amazing lineage that's continued, and he's on our website pretty much anywhere we can find a place for him.
That's great. I'll have to look up the clip that he does because I want to hear his voice. So like I
Definitely.
said, I live in Cleveland and as we are recording this, like right now, like 3:08, the Guardians are playing in the do or die game for the wild card.
Oh,
And
yes.
I was telling you about our 9-month-old lab puppy who may or may not make an appearance, but he hasn't yet. And his name is Hammy after the Guardians announcer whose name's Tom Hamilton. And he
There
doesn't have
you
a
go.
TCNJ connection, but I totally vibe with uh, the impact that some really good sports announcers have. Because if you get a chance, I want you to go Google Tom Hamilton clips, and I'll actually send you one after we're
Please
done.
do.
But
Writing the
yeah,
name
it's
down.
yeah, Tom Hamilton. He's got like one of the best voices in all of baseball. He gets so into it, but that's who our dog's named after. So
Oh,
go
that's
Guards.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, Noelle, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding some light on TCNJ. And if you have any questions, if you're watching this, please reach out to Noelle and her team, and they will be happy to speak with you. But best of luck to you as you continue to recruit this season, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. Take care.
You too.
Bye.